Disney P-Brus.
Disney, something Disney babies.
P-Brus.
Yeah, that was Ryan in the group chat. Went, yo, I gotta get Disney Plus.
The watching the Man Fall Rain.
Fall Rain.
Man Fall Rain are mandatory lanes. Unfortunately, though, the AI learning for iMessage has gotten a lot better. It now knows that I mean the Mandalorian, so
all right.
Those jokes are kind of out, but mandatory lanes is pretty great.
So did you guys saw my text about the Simpsons, like how Disney Plus?
Sorry, I had to do that.
Okay.
Why'd you have to do that?
I don't know. I just felt like it's all right. Okay, yeah. Are we riffing now? Is this recording?
Yeah, I'm recording.
Okay, so start that over again.
No, I'm gonna leave it in. Did you guys see that Disney announced they're gonna be fixing the aspect ratio thing with The Simpsons?
I don't quite understand.
That sounds really good.
Why? I mean, they obviously needed to do that, but
yeah.
Why did they even think it was okay to
change the aspect ratio?
Or what? Yeah, what would
probably to fit computer screens and
phones and stuff.
Yeah, probably.
Well, so how's it going to appear now as opposed to
the original format?
So is there going to be like bars on the side? Oh, okay, I get what you're saying.
Because the one of the guys who pointed out on Twitter, he noticed, like, he was watching one of the episodes where they're in the Duff beer factory, and it's Duff Light, Duff, and like Duff Heavy or something like that, or Low Cal Duff, and they're all coming from the same pipe. In the you can visibly see in the original episode that they're all coming from the same pipe, but on the Disney Plus episode,
they look like three separate pipes.
Yeah, they look like it's all coming from three separate pipes.
Oh, because that's
what it is it's not necessarily that the characters look distorted or anything. It's just that they literally just took the original like picture.
They shrunk it down.
So in order to probably pull it more in on the sides, it also brought it down a lot.
Yes.
Yeah. So, but that's funny though, because in doing so, they actually were removing jokes out of the show, because that's the only way it was going to get noticed, where somebody was like, no, it's all just the same beer, just labeled three different ways.
Oh, okay, I get it.
So
now.
that's the whole thing.
So
see, you described it to me that way, that it shows on Disney Plus, and I didn't get the joke. And now you were just like, oh yeah, it's the. I mean, like, I didn't really.
Well, he was saying, like, in the original episode, you could see that the three pipes actually just fed into the one pipe,
that they're just taking the same beer.
But and that it's just all the same beer.
Time traveling light beer, the state of light beer today.
Do you guys have a favorite episode of The Simpsons?
I honestly, so it's really funny though. Like, I remember fighting with Mom to watch The Simpsons, and then all of a sudden it just wasn't a show I cared about anymore. I think once I started liking Family Guy a little bit better.
Yeah,
that age liked milk.
Well, I was gonna say now it's like now I find myself probably wanting to go back to Simpsons, or I would probably like Simpsons more because it's such a much more educated show than Family Guy.
I'm right there. I definitely want to, especially now with Disney Plus coming out, I definitely want to go back and watch more Simpsons.
The joke's on you. You've been able to watch The Simpsons on FX.
You're 100% right. I just haven't.
Years.
Yeah, and I remember like seeing you guys watch The Simpsons, and then when the Simpsons movie came out, like I was all about that. That movie was hilarious.
It was good. I was a big fan of the Simpsons video games too.
Oh, Hit and Run!
Simpsons
oh my God,
Hit and Run. They had Hit and Run was a taxi. Then they had another one that was more of like an open world Springfield game, and it was really, really, really funny.
Like Grand Theft Auto.
It was.
No, that was Hit and Run.
No, there was.
No, you're right. You're right. There was another one that was like a Simpsons taxi.
Something like that. Do you guys remember Christmas Day when we got Simpsons Hit and Run?
Yes.
And our grandmother's husband was sitting down in the living room with us, and we're playing the Simpsons game, and so we're playing as Homer, driving the pink sedan, around Springfield, and we're just running over people, and he's looking at the manual.
Yeah, because they made the funniest sounds.
It was hilarious
when they got ran over. They all had like these like unique set of lines that they would you'd say when you'd like run them over or hit them. So here we are just running people over,
and he's reading the manual, and he goes up to our parents and goes, "Oh, did you know they get points for hitting people?" And Mom and Dad were like, "It's a cartoon video game."
Yeah.
Yeah, so
we're so violent now because of it.
Yeah.
You had Simpsons Hit and Run in 2003, and then there was a Simpsons video game, like just called Simpsons Game, The Simpsons Game.
Dude, so
in
good.
In 2007, so.
Yeah, I don't think I played it in 2007. Wait,
It's
no.
probably based off the movie.
Maybe.
If we had the Simpsons movie.
Yeah. I don't know.
I think the Simpsons movie came out well after that.
Regardless,
2007.
though, both of those games were very,
Fair
very
enough.
good.
You got me.
Yeah. Well, if
But-
you haven't guessed, all right, sorry, Matt, I cut you off.
No, I was gonna say in terms of like some of the episodes, I haven't watched the show in forever, but some of the Treehouse of Horrors were like
so good.
so good. Just with, and some of them were actually legitimately scary as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think Simpsons overall is one of the goats.
You do have a lot of people out there that are like OD into it. So I'm definitely.
Oh,
not one.
yeah,
I'm
for
definitely
sure.
not one of those.
For sure.
people.
Yeah, no, me neither. Which I think is cool too. Looking at this, then theory kind of like, we're gonna look at the whole thing probably objectively, right? A little bit more because we're not super fans of the show.
Well, I love I mean the show has become such like a integral part of like pop culture. I mean, like one of the most well-known writers for the show, who he wrote Marge v. Monorail, is Conan O'Brien.
Oh.
Oh,
Yeah,
really?
Yep. He started out as a writer for The Simpsons and then moved on to be a writer on Saturday Night Live, and it was through that that Lorne Michaels auditioned him to take over late night.
Huh. Oh, that's so interesting.
And so I don't even think that this is going to be an unpopular opinion or a hot take at all, but I think it's pretty safe to say that Simpsons is the Seinfeld of TV cartoons.
I would say so.
Like
Yeah,
with how iconic and successful. I mean, like in terms of its replay value too, right? In terms like with how much it's now just recirculated on channels like FX.
Yeah,
sure.
but it also doesn't piss people off like the way South Park does. Because I would go as far.
That's true too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Granted, South Park has not been around for as long, but it's kind of how you look at like South Park is to The Simpsons as like It's Always Sunny is to Seinfeld or something like that.
Yeah, 100%. Well, if you haven't guessed, today we're going to be talking about The Simpsons and all the conspiracy theories surrounding that. Welcome to today's episode of The Rabbit Hole. As always, I'm Tim, joined by
John, what up?
and Matt.
Yo.
And today we're going to be talking about two strange stories involving The Simpsons. And first, a little bit of history about The Simpsons before we dive deep. The Simpsons was created by Matt Groening, who named the characters of the show after members of his own family. The only one that was changed was Bart, which was a substitute for his own name. And the show was originally produced as short films for The Tracy Ullman Show, which aired on Fox. The Simpsons shorts were on the show for 3 seasons before being developed into a 30-minute primetime show for Fox. The Simpsons debuted on December 17th, 1989, and has been in production ever since, and it is the longest-running sitcom and the longest-running scripted primetime series.
You guys think there's any reason why he changed his name to Bart? I mean, I guess it's just very similar to Matt, but
Maybe.
I mean, you think of like Bart is not a common name at all, which is probably
No.
why he did it too, I guess,
Yeah.
right?
I mean,
Yeah.
probably just to distance himself from the actions of the character. That's
Also-
that's my hot take on it.
That, and I would imagine too that as comedic value, Bart probably offers a lot of options for you to write
Sure.
in the name calling of fart.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, I don't know if you could go with the chicken or the egg on this one in terms of, is Bart just a name you associate with a punk because of Bart Simpson?
Mhm.
Or is it
Oh,
actually an inherently punky sounding name?
But another
because
thing,
if his name was Matt, you might not be like, or like Matt, you punk Matt, but Bart.
Yeah.
you punk Matt.
I was walking down to the convenience store, and that local punk Matthew came up to me and stole my
Yeah,
lunch
like-
money.
That
Think of-
second gospel in the Bible, piece of shit.
Yeah, like he would just be a spoiled brat, but he's a spoiled brat with a really cool name.
Yeah.
That, but, it makes sense. Yeah, it's not like oh damn it, Kevin's stealing my shoes again.
God damn it, Steven.
Yeah, but you got Bart. Like Bart just sounds like you.
rugged.
Yeah, you're up to no good.
Yeah, mean mugging.
So the reason we're talking about The Simpsons today is that the show has a track record of being involved in some pretty weird shit. Today, we're going to be talking about two of the most prominent conspiracies, or pretty much one conspiracy, one urban legend about The Simpsons. Dead Bart and how the show predicts the future. To get us into the mood, let's begin with Dead Bart, and I'll be reading the Creepypasta by user K.I. Simpson that the story originates from. It's more of an urban legend, like I said, but it has a strange tie to The Simpsons predicting the future. You guys ready?
Hey, let's do it.
I'm ready.
You know how Fox has a weird way of counting Simpsons episodes? They refuse to count a couple of them, making the amount of episodes inconsistent. The reason for this is a lost episode from Season 1. Finding details about the missing episode is difficult. No one who was working on the show at the time likes to talk about it. From what has been pieced together, the lost episode was written entirely by Matt Groening. During production of the first season, Matt started to act strangely. He was very quiet, seemed nervous, and morbid. Mentioning this to anyone who was present results in them getting very angry and forbidding you to ever mention it to Matt.
I always like when a theory will start off being like, nobody talks about this, and it's impossible to get information on it, so don't ask me who my sources are.
Yeah. Because you won't find any.
Because I don't have any.
I think it's really funny, too, that all of the symptoms that they just described Matt Groening as having during this first season, what is it, like anxiety, like
nervous
depressed,
and morbid,
nervous.
yeah.
Dude, he's running a show for the first time. Like
100%.
I would be probably all of that, and then on top of that, shitting myself as all of that was happening.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, very likely to be all of those things, and he probably doesn't like to think about that time much either.
Yeah, Matt, I heard you were shitting your pants for the first season of The Simpsons because you were anxious and depressed. Is that true?
How'd you?
Who wants to talk
How'd you
about
find out about that?
He swore all of his coworkers.
Did you fish my diapers from that season out of the garbage?
Did Conan tell you this?
I heard they were selling them on eBay. I didn't think it was true.
I first heard of it at an event where David Silverman was speaking. Someone in the crowd asked about the episode, and Silverman simply left the stage, ending the presentation hours early. How early did? Early did
someone
he
just
end
like someone goes
Hi.
someone goes to the guy or girl who asked the Dead Bart question, and they're just like, "Yo, asshole."
Dude, paid $70 for this ticket, you bitch.
I wanted to just find out what went into making Santa's Little Helper episode. My God, you piece of shit. Why do you're the first person to ask this fucking question?
Dead Bart's not even real, dude.
Also, I love how the guy says he ended the presentation hours early, like it was supposed to be a 4-hour event.
But I'm just picturing, I'm picturing somebody, yeah, right? But I'm picturing somebody just being like, Dead Bart question, and then it's just like, he just stands there and he goes, nope.
A strict, like a big 90-degree turn right off stage.
Just walks off stage and people are like, oh, God damn it.
Check, please.
The episode's production number was 7G06. The title was Dead Bart. The episode labeled 7G06, Moaning Lisa, was made later and given Dead Bart's production code to hide the latter's existence.
Still not a great name to give that. You got Dead Bart and Moaning Lisa, which actually, I mean, there's kind of a coincidence there, right? I mean, maybe that's something that the person who created or if somebody created the Creepypasta made up, but Dead Bart, Moaning Lisa, it's kind of like the two are very similar, right?
Kind of. No, Moaning Lisa is more like Mona Lisa.
There you go. You're right. Totally. So it totally is a coincidence. Theory debunked.
In addition to getting angry, asking anyone who was on the show about this will cause them to do anything they can to stop you from directly communicating with Matt Groening. At a fan event, I managed to follow him after he spoke to the crowd, and eventually had a chance to talk to him alone as he was leaving the building. He didn't seem upset that I had followed him, probably expected a typical encounter with an obsessive fan. When I mentioned the lost episode, though, all color drained from his face and he started trembling. When I asked him if he could tell me any details, he sounded like he was on the verge of tears. He grabbed a piece of paper, wrote something on it, and handed it to me. He begged me never to mention the episode again. Well, if he begged and you're fucking going on the internet about it, like, dude, come on.
Yeah,
this person obviously violated the rules of the NDA that he signed with Matt Groening. But I think it's just really funny though that I love how dramatic this is, right? Like,
but I'm just waiting for him to be like, and when he gave me the piece of paper, that's when I put the gun away and let him go.
He was crying. There was a gun in my hand.
He was begging for his life, but it had to be because of this hidden episode, not because of the Glock in my hand.
Matt Groening was trembling and on the verge of tears. I was there naked with a half chub. Give me the lost episode. I don't know what you're talking about, man.
Never talk about this again.
Why are you erect? Oh my God! Just take the fucking. I don't care. It's a fucking throwaway episode. Jesus.
The piece of paper had a website address on it. I would rather not say what it was for reasons you'll see in a second.
Convenient.
Yeah, right.
I entered the address into my browser, and I came to a site that was completely black, except for a line of yellow text, a download link. I clicked on it, and a file started downloading. Once the file was downloaded, my computer went crazy. It was the worst virus I had ever seen. System restore didn't work. The entire computer had to be rebooted. Before this, though, I copied the file onto a CD. I tried to open it on my now empty computer, and as I suspected, there was an episode of The Simpsons on it.
So, Matt, you're more the computer guy here, and as I was reading this, I was like, how do you simultaneously get a virus and then extract a file off of a web page?
Yeah, you probably wouldn't be able to.
Because, like, whatever the virus is would completely render, like, I can only imagine, like, you can't have
I mean, like, there could be some sort of delay, but you wouldn't think to do that until after the virus, right? Like, I mean, I don't know, maybe he, like, his first thought was, I need to save whatever's on this, on this download link, but if you're downloading something on a link, like, why would you then go straight to, I need to put it on a TV, like a CD, like, right away, like, like, he's gonna go through the process of burning it right before, you know what I mean? Like in like the probably little bit amount of time before he downloaded it and the virus kicked in.
Yeah, it doesn't make much sense to me just from the onset that somebody was like, but I was able to get the file that was there. Not that this was just some sort of Trojan horse to begin with, but
also the fact that he was like, oh, system restore didn't work. So pretty much it's that, like, your computer's completely shot, but of course you happen to get it on a CD beforehand. But then also, if you did to one computer and you really, really, really want this, just, like, prepare for it for another computer and then do it, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like,
this sounds like one of those movies that, like, what was it? Like, it was one of the Bourne movies that, like, oh, I found this in C# or something like that.
Oh no, that was the newest one. He goes, oh, this is great.
He's like, we're uploading it to sequel.
No. He's like, they're hacking us with sequel. Like, what? Like, it's just, like, that's I can't even. There are people who know way more about that than me, but obviously the people who wrote the Bourne, it was just called Bourne.
Yeah,
right?
It was just Jason Bourne.
Just Jason Bourne.
Yeah.
They clearly didn't know anything about it.
Like, take a gadget word and throw it in there.
Yeah, right.
It's a weird one to pick out, though.
The episode started off like any other, but had very poor animation quality. If you've seen the original animation for Some Enchanted Evening, it was similar, but less stable. The first act was fairly normal, but the way the characters acted was a little off. Homer seemed angrier, Marge seemed depressed, Lisa seemed anxious, Bart seemed to have genuine anger and hatred for his parents. So it was an episode of The Simpsons.
Yeah.
Nothing abnormal as of right now.
The episode was about The Simpsons going on a plane trip. Near the end of the first act, the plane was taking off. Bart was fooling around as you'd expect. However, the plane was about 50 feet off the ground. Bart broke a window on the plane and was sucked out. At the beginning of the series, Matt had an idea that the animated style of The Simpsons world represented life, and that death turned things more realistic. This was used in this episode. The picture of Bart's corpse was barely recognizable. They took full advantage of it not having to move, and made an almost photorealistic drawing of his dead body.
That's
very off-putting.
Yeah, it's creepy. This is definitely creepy.
They pitch it to the this episode, if it's real. Like, when they first created it, they pitched it to the higher-ups, and they're all like, okay, no.
So I'm just trying to what I'm trying to get a better understanding of is what photorealistic, like, what does that necessarily mean in an animation sense?
I have like, in an animation sense, it's almost like
it just was drawn really
well,
really
almost like how the new Lion King is not real life, it's photorealistic computer animation,
so there's
CGI.
There's more detail to
it.
But also you can, like, find images on the internet that somebody paints, like, it comes up a lot on Reddit, right? Like, you'll get, like, random suggestions for, like, one of the ones I get is, I think it's, like, painting or whatever. I don't do paint or anything, but it, like, suggests the subreddit to me. And people will do photorealistic drawings of stuff like their face or of like an object, and until they really told you, you can't really tell exactly whether or not that's a drawing or a photo.
Gotcha.
So that's what I imagine they're talking about.
Okay, and that's why it says they took advantage of the corpse not moving. So
Yeah, because I think you can really only do it when it's
probably
still
hard to animate.
Yeah, for sure.
Act 1 ended with the shot of Bart's corpse. When Act 2 started, Homer, Marge, and Lisa were sitting at their table crying. The crying went on and on. It got more pained and sounded even more realistic. Better acting than you would think possible. The animation started to decay even more as they cried. You could hear murmuring in the background. The characters could barely be made out. They were stretching and blurring. They looked like deformed shadows with random bright colors thrown on them. There were faces looking in the window, flashing in and out, so you were never sure what they looked like. The crying went on for all of Act 2. Keep in mind, for an animated show, Act 2 was like fucking like a 30-minute show. Act 2 was like 12 minutes long. That's very long.
That's the longest.
The actors and actresses that they paid for this segment must have been freaked the fuck out.
All right, so Dan, what we're gonna do is, as Homer, if you can just cry for about 30 minutes, and then we'll be all set here.
Yeah, they go in there like, hey Kevin, how are you? You ready to do your voice bits today? Yeah, I was looking at the script, and in Act 2, the Dead Bart shit in the beginning, that's okay, whatever. That's a Simpsons episode. Act 2 though, 10 pages of just straight, like
it
just
says
crying.
It says audible crying in quotes. And then it says 12 minutes. I'm just making sure, like, will it be spanning? Like, we'll pretend like it's the 12 minutes, or no, it's an actual 12 minutes.
Oh, okay.
How much you paying me again? Oh, okay, that's fine.
Hey Matt, you're looking a little like nervous and anxious. Stop bringing it up.
You know what it is? I would
just cry.
I would more so think that they found a scene of people crying and just took that audio.
That would be even worse,
right? That's kind of what I'm thinking. Why this episode is so creepy is that there might actually be a little bit of reality,
maybe,
thrown into it.
They're just the entire time. They're like, all right, whatever stress, whatever anxiety, whatever weird shit you've ever wanted to do on the show and shit you want to get out right now, let's just do it for an episode. And they're all like, oh, okay, like.
Let me pull out the book.
Who has some, I've been waiting to use this audio file from the Tiananmen Square riots. I just really needed a way to bring it into The Simpsons.
Did you say Tenement Square?
Tiananmen, whatever.
Okay.
It's this. I've kind of
Tiananmen.
Tiananmen Square. There you go.
Tiananmen.
Sorry, John.
Were you not listening to System of a Down, Matt? Why don't you ask the kids in Tiananmen Square?
I kind of said it like that, so now we obviously know where my pronunciation of the word comes from.
I didn't mean to culture shame you there, but
yeah,
it's okay.
Act 3 opened with a title card.
I'll never be the same. My career is ruined.
Act 3 opened with a title card saying 1 year had passed. Homer, Marge, and Lisa were skeletally thin and still sitting at the table. There was no sign of Maggie or the pets.
She got up and left. She's like, this shit is depressing.
It's like, yo, you guys have been crying for a full year. I'm hungry. Baby hungry.
I'm out.
I'm finding another family.
Bart was a piece of shit, so I don't understand. I understand he was your son, but
she's like, we should be partying.
We got to move on. It's been a year.
They decided to visit Bart's grave. Springfield was completely deserted, and as they walked to the cemetery, the houses became more and more decrepit. They looked abandoned. When they got to the grave, Bart's body was just lying in front of his tombstone, looking just as it did at the end of Act 1.
Oh, I forgot. We never actually did anything with
shit, we
this.
just kind of left him here. My bad. We were too busy crying for a year.
That's why they didn't air this episode, because it would have been ripped by the critics, where they were like, okay, so we're supposed to believe that a body won't decay over a year? Unbelievable.
Listen, I get that Maggie is 3 years old for 30 years, but the body decay.
Bodies decay when they're dead.
Also, what does photorealistic
Why
even
don't you
mean?
draw that in your cartoon?
The family started crying again.
All right. You thought it was done in Act 2, but we're doing the crying thing again.
Hey, Matt. I just wanted to ask a question. They visited the cemetery, and we just got done with like the 12 pages of crying. So we did that, but you said it is crying again. Why are we doing this? Stop asking! Oh my god, dude, come on.
We sad.
He's shitting himself so much. God damn it.
Eventually, they stopped and just stared at Bart's body. The camera zoomed in on Homer's face. According to summaries, Homer tells a joke at this part, but it isn't audible in the version I saw. You can't tell what Homer is saying.
So this is another thing. According to what summaries? Who summarized this? And we can't find it anywhere.
Yeah.
So I guess it must really just be according to what other people.
K.I. Simpson.
Well, he's the one writing this, and he's also the one that said he got the piece of paper. So he's his own source at the same time that he's also finding other sources.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, because he said you can't hear it in this version.
Nobody talks about it, but
there is not a single piece of evidence on the internet that this thing is real. There's a whole bunch of articles saying people like it's definitely not real, which could be fishy in and of itself. But this is like the only piece of evidence about this.
Yeah.
As Alex Jones just taught me the other day on a video I found, Google controls what you can see, so it's very easy for them to hide posts that they don't want you to see.
Okay.
So origins of this theory, maybe, I don't know. But
Really, the only way that, and I'm actually surprised that nobody's done it, somebody needs to videotape themselves going up to Matt Groening and asking him about Dead Bart, which would probably be pretty insensitive to his privacy, but that'd be the only way. Like, imagine he just starts dying laughing.
No,
He's
but
like,
the powers that be are the ones that are publishing the articles telling people that it's a waste of your time because this is all just some sort of creepypasta joke or whatever.
yeah, like nobody even said it was cool. Like the whole thing, regardless of its truth or not, is super cool.
Well, it's that in the fact that there is the concept of cartoonists and people of this such having this R-rated secret episode.
Yeah.
And so that if you kept clicking through, because I went down this quick rabbit hole.
It's the name of the show. Wrap it up, everybody.
We're done. You're welcome.
Thank
Bravo!
you guys for 4.5 incredible episodes.
That's it. We did it. But so, and Snopes declared this is true, even though if you listen to the fucking if you watch the episode, that there was this secret hidden R-rated episode of Dexter's Laboratory. And Tim, I think we should take the time to pull it up because it's actually really funny to listen to it.
It's true?
Well, so in the Snopes article, they include it, but it's just like so obviously edited because you can hear this like little click every time before the character says fuck. And it's so,
not a very good R-rated episode if you just take regular Dexter's Laboratory and just put fuck. It's probably hilarious, but
yeah, you got to see it. So it's called like
Dexter's Rude Removal.
Yeah, exactly. Did I put it up there or no? Tim?
I have it.
Okay, so did you find the Snopes article?
All right, I'm gonna
you
skip
can skip.
ahead a little
You
bit.
can skip through a little bit. So,
System is a smashing success. Quite. Like I said before, it takes the rudeness of a person, removes it, and then contains it. Where the fuck are we? Why, you're in Dexter's laboratory, silly. I'm Dexter, and this golden-haired angel behind me is my charming sister, Didi. Charmed. Fuck off. Excuse me, sir, but we think that was very rude, and we are in want of an apology. Yeah, here's your fucking lunchtime. Lunchtime, I'm fucking starving.
so pretty much.
So whatever the Italian, whatever the German or French accent is, the rude part of Dexter is actually a Guido from the Bronx.
I was just
like
gonna
I'm
say.
fucking stabbing over here. Hey, yo, what we got? The Dexter's Laboratory.
It's just some Italian from the Bronx.
Do we want to listen to more?
No, that's the extent
That
of it.
That was
fucking
way
hilarious.
better.
Yeah,
than I thought
so-
it would've been.
Where the fuck up?
Yeah, so we obviously will include that part at but
What you do is you fade it in, right? So you're like, oh,
I
it's listening to
can
and
work it
then-
out.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that right there is evidence that there is, well, quasi-evidence. I could totally believe that was made by somebody else. Like, you can't actually prove anything of the such unless you go and watch
Well-
the So they say that in the episode they just beeped it out. So I would have to go back and actually watch the original, and this is them just not beeping it out. But like, it's very easy for them to just pretend like they're cursing when they're making the episode.
So
So this here is proof that there is, or quasi-proof, in my opinion, that there is such a thing of these cartoonists making an R-rated version of an episode.
Yes, for sure.
So the website I have off of legendsrevealed.com, it says, in January of this year, the episode was confirmed to exist for real. It was even temporarily available on Adult Swim's website. Censored, though, of course. In fact, here it is. This is an edited version of the censored version. The uncensored version was never made publicly. So
And Snopes did an article on it and said that it's true.
Yeah.
So, I mean...
So what we just heard was just somebody editing in the word fuck to...
Allegedly.
Yeah.
That's
But
true,
that's
yeah.
still
That would make sense if they were like, oh, yeah, we never released it.
Mhm.
And then, like, gave it to people.
The view zoomed out as the episode came to a close.
And we're back.
And we're back!
And we're back.
The tombstones in the background had the names of every Simpsons guest star on them. Some of them, some that no one had heard of in 1989, some that haven't even been on the show yet. All of them had death dates on them. For guests who died since, like Michael Jackson and George Harrison, the dates were when they would die. The credits were completely silent. They seemed handwritten. The final image was the Simpsons family on their couch, like in the intros, but drawn in hyper-realistic, lifeless style of Bart's corpse. A thought occurred to me after seeing the episode for the first time. You could try to use the tombstones to predict the death of living Simpsons guest stars, but there's something odd about most of the ones who haven't died yet. All of their deaths are listed as the same date. Oh, sweet mama!
That's a pretty cool story.
Yeah,
I
it's
mean,
fun.
at the base of it, I think it's super interesting.
So, and what I think the same date death lends itself to as well is some sort of apocalypse. So it's, the people that haven't died yet, we will all die on the same day, being an apocalypse.
Interesting.
For
Yep.
sure.
Yeah.
Now, that begs the question. Does this Creepypasta article lend some credence to another popular theory about The Simpsons? Well, throughout the last couple of years, The Simpsons has been making headlines for what many see as a consistent predicting of the future. Is life imitating art, or is there something more suspicious at play? There are a few different reasons people believe that The Simpsons so accurately predict events that sometimes happen only a full decade or more before they happen on our godforsaken timeline. There's
God-forsaken.
Yeah, we live in the bad one.
There's a good one somewhere, and it might be the one that the
one
that
Pat-
Matt Groening went
It's
to.
the one Patton Oswalt talks about where Gore won the election.
That was the turning point. That's where the different realities split.
Mm-hmm.
We live in the timeline where it's the Berenstain Bears, not the Bernstein.
Yep.
That's another episode.
Whoa!
Where Nelson Mandela died in Mandela.
That's what it is.
Nelson Mandela died in jail.
Yeah,
that's another one.
The Mandela effect. Yep.
There's a theory that the creator of The Simpsons, Matt Groening, is actually a time traveler who came back in time and is planting hints of the future into episodes of The Simpsons. This theory has also made people believe that his follow-up series, Futurama, is actually more along the lines of a documentary, considering that Groening has actually lived in the future. That's interesting.
If you talk to the big Futurama heads, they would sit there and say that Futurama is creepier than The Simpsons
For sure.
in a lot of those senses. But what's super funny about Futurama, to lend itself to this theory, if it is coming from Matt Groening in the future, he doesn't know what his future is at that certain point, and Futurama's not a show anymore.
Ooh.
So
True. Whoa. So it's like he might be able to only go so far.
He can work out this timeline because he's so much further ahead. He knows how it keeps playing out for the next however many 100 years. I'm not quite sure how far into the future Futurama takes place, but if you really think about it, Futurama did not last even slightly as long as The Simpsons.
No.
If he releases a third, oh wait, I get what you're saying. Yeah.
It ends.
It might end.
It
yeah,
ends,
yeah.
and that might have just been when he because he can't go any further. I
Yeah.
mean, you can only know is so far into your future.
Who knows? Maybe he'll release a third show or something.
He does. Well, he does.
It's called Disenchanted.
Now,
Disenchantment.
so maybe it's that we've reached a point. Maybe there's a point for which there's an apocalypse that sends us back to the medieval ages.
Ooh, Matt Groening.
Right? There you go.
If that's a time, honestly, I'd be okay with that because that means that Eric Andre is a demon in the apocalypse, and that is pretty fucking cool.
Why would Eric Andre be a demon?
He's a demon in Disenchantment.
Oh, okay, that's funny.
He plays
I haven't
Lucy, I think, is the demon's
Yeah,
name.
he's
Nah,
like a little,
watched
like
it.
troll-looking thing.
Okay, Lucy.
A little troll.
Now, there's another theory as to Matt Groening's time travel ability, and it's that a future version of himself went back in time to Olympia, Washington, where he's from, and gave his younger self Simpsons memorabilia and a 20-year plan for how to become famous, wealthy, and one of the most influential people of all time in entertainment.
That I would say is very plausible, purely because people always talk about, oh man, if you had the ability to go back in time or to like go into the future to see how things played out, why wouldn't you place a bet on every sports game that's ever happened or going to happen if you could tell, if you knew what the outcome would be? And my answer to that is because that's too fucking obvious. Because if you are 10 for 10 or 100 for 100 on these betting games, and like, you know, you've never lost, you've given yourself up. You know something, you're going to either end up in prison, which is pointless because you're fixing these games allegedly.
Mm-hmm. And when you think about it too, it's amazing how long The Simpsons went on for someone to create original content like that. For how many years is it?
It's been like 30 years that The Simpsons has been on.
Yeah.
And it's like...
No, 89, was when the first episode was. Yeah, you're right, 30 years.
Crazy.
Exactly.
So, I mean, the fact that, you know, the theory says that he set himself up for this fame and this long, illustrious career, totally, like John said, I think it's totally plausible that, you know, this is the way to do it as opposed to some quick, you know, fast and very
there's still a degree of
this
work.
is still very noticeable too, but it makes more sense.
There's still a degree of work that goes into this where people would be like, no, he's just successful, he's not a cheater.
Right.
Exactly.
Then past Matt painted all this new information and hid the paintings for years, only to resurface when a 69-year-old artist bought some watercolors at a Seattle thrift store, claiming them to be done by Groening himself when he was a student at Evergreen State University. But the strange thing about these watercolors is that they featured the finished designs of the characters like Bart Simpson. They're not Groening's first character designs, which look very different from how they are now, and nor are they the character designs featured on the Tracy Ullman show. And people believe that the reason that these watercolors exist is because of a rift in the timeline.
Oh.
A rift in what way? In the sense that somehow these things made their way back to...
In the sense that...
some collector?
In the sense that these finished products were from, like, the character designs were from the future, and that... Like,
gotcha.
They made their way back.
They shouldn't be there. They shouldn't be in the past, but they ended up there.
Exactly.
The future Matt Groening presented past Matt Groening with what the final design concept would look like, and it kind of got a little muddled in the details, and then future Matt Groening came in and said, no, you have to start shitty and then work your way to this finished product.
Yeah.
Because it's this more, like,
That's interesting,
like this version of Bart, or the version of the characters you see now, because like Tim's saying, if you go back and find the older episodes, they're very rough. It's almost more similar to like the early, like that first Rick and Morty episode. Like Doc and Marty, very rough, very
Doc
whatever.
And Marty.
So another theory about Groening is that he's a very powerful member of the Freemasons who knows the events of the future and is planting hints of the information he knows into episodes of The Simpsons.
I think that's the much more commonly accepted theory. When I say commonly accepted theory, I mean amongst the fellow theorists out there, my fellow theorists. But yeah, it's seems to be a little bit more in line with many other theories.
Who knew that two of the most powerful representations of Freemason imagery in our time would be The Simpsons and National Treasure 1 and 2?
Wow, and they're all owned by Disney?
They're trying to tell us something. Also, really quick digression. Do you think that National Treasure 1 and 2 was good or bad for the Freemasons?
Probably very good.
Oh, it was excellent because it threw all of us off their actual trail of where the treasure's hidden. So you got a bunch of weirdos looking at
churches in Philadelphia.
Churches in Independence Hall, but everything is much more hidden than that.
That's funny. That's good.
So now let's look at the reasons why people believe that Matt Groening is a time traveler or a member of the Freemasons. So for that, we'll be looking at times where the Simpsons have accurately predicted the future.
Cool.
So recently, I don't know if you've heard that owner of the Miss Universe pageants, Donald Trump, he's president now.
Oh, that guy.
Yeah, that little fella.
That guy.
And he's been, yeah.
It's really just tickling my fancy.
Yeah.
In 2016, people thought that it was going to be a surefire win for Hillary Clinton. Clear-cut victory. People weren't expecting Trump to become president, but there was a group of people that might have thought that he was going to win. The writers of The Simpsons in the year 2000.
Interesting. Do explain.
I pray thee I will. The prediction came in season 11, episode 17, Bart to the Future.
Huh.
Keep in mind, Bart, in a way, is Matt Groening. In the episode, Bart time travels.
Oh, how
he time
convenient.
travels to the future.
Does he really?
Yep, he time travels to the future to see what adulthood has in store, and he finds out Lisa becomes the next president of the United States. In the episode, we get to see Lisa in the Oval Office talking to her staff.
As you know, we've inherited quite a budget crunch from President Trump.
What?
Ooh.
Can I get a Tim Allen grunt, Matt?
Ooh.
And from John?
I can't do it as good as Matt.
Yeah, so in that we get a look at the future, suggesting that Donald Trump becomes president. So, I mean, this is kind of my little fill in the blank on this theory. If Donald Trump is president, and then that means Lisa Simpson is next. If Elizabeth Warren is elected to office, people are going to be saying that after Trump, the Simpsons predicted a female president.
See,
my problem, crazy. My problem with that, though, is that depiction of Lisa in the episode looks much more like Hillary. So that's why it scares me. Even.
Does she wear pantsuits?
No, it's the haircut and everything. Yeah. So it's more like if you keep listening to these murmurs.
She does wear a pantsuit, holy shit.
Yeah.
No
well,
way.
A purple pantsuit.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
So, but if you keep hearing these murmurs that Hillary is potentially considering throwing her hat into the ring for this upcoming election, that would make things very interesting, especially for this kind of theory, in my opinion. You know what I mean? Because maybe they didn't get it 100% right where Trump beat Hillary, more so that Hillary precedes Trump, but like who knows if that could actually happen. But right. I like the idea, though, that it would be followed up by a much more pragmatic woman to come in and be like, all right, so the budget's fucked.
Then, in 2003, another prediction came too. Season 5, Episode 10 was called Springfield, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love Legalized Gambling.
I love the name of that episode.
Love it, it's great.
It's such a great episode.
And it aired in 1993. The plot revolves around Springfield legalizing gambling, and Mr. Burns opens up his very own casino, which featured German magicians Gunther and Ernst, a parody of Siegfried and Roy, who were famous for having a white lion in their act. In the episode, Gunther and Ernst are shown getting attacked by their famous feline friend. 10 years after the episode aired, though, Siegfried and Roy would be attacked by their very own Lylan. 10 years after the episode aired, Siegfried and Roy would be attacked by their very own lion, which would go on to leave Roy partially paralyzed and would end their careers as magicians.
So this one I don't subscribe to as much, right?
Yeah, because of course the lion's gonna fucking attack someone.
Well, but the other thing, like I was kind of talking to you guys about it before, but they were always like, everyone's always like, oh, like, how do you guys know that this lion's not gonna like attack you? And they're like, we've trained it, we've done this, it knows our commands. It's this is a perfectly safe routine. So of course one of the dominant comedy cartoons is going to. I think it's not far to imagine that they would want to riff on this just because of what they were saying.
For sure.
Regardless of how confident, and maybe part of everybody's confidence that it would always stay safe maybe gave them a little bit more freedom to say, oh, it's okay for us to joke on it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
And even at that, it still didn't happen for another, 10 years?
10 years, yeah.
So I mean, people brought it up, I'm sure, because now you're actually talking about the height of the internet era. Or at least what is becoming strong internet.
So these are actually the parts, though, that I think makes this theory overall pretty viable. Is now I just explained the stance on the Gunther and Ernst part, but the fact that these episodes are coming out 10 plus years prior to when they actually happened is definitely, I think, pretty suspicious, right?
Well, so that's what people will say is the way in which they predict the future, because it's so far out that there's just no way that you could have had any sort of guess, or it would have been so much tougher to guess.
It's so out of the normal realm of your daily thinking to think about something. Now, I mean, now we're all not writing cartoons, but still, even that, are you thinking 10 years out? I mean, are you thinking like immediately like that? Like,
I want to let Tim get through the theories first, but I did watch a video where they kind of tried to align a lot of these theories with maybe actual things or more realistic approaches to the timing of things.
Okay.
And really what the bigger picture is, or what the funnier thing is the conspiracy theories like this actually are kind of taking credit away from the writers, because the video was pretty much saying, no, these were just really creative, smart, intelligent writers.
Oh, 100%.
That they just like were that they were just that they had their pulse on the comedy, the comedy feed that well, that like these things kind of were happening and it wasn't that hard to see.
Wow, that's really
were going to happen. It just wasn't that hard to see immediately.
Now, The Simpsons also predicted an election mishap 4 years before it really happened. In a segment in Treehouse of Horror 19, Homer tries to vote for Barack Obama in 2008 when he was running against John McCain. But the electronic voting machine didn't let him vote for Obama, and it switched his vote to McCain. This prophecy came true in 2012 when Barack Obama ran against Mitt Romney, and when voting machines in Pennsylvania switched people's votes from Obama to Romney.
That clip is actually hilarious on The Simpsons when Homer's trying to vote for Obama and just keeps going to McCain. There's something about the way that he just keeps on trying to do it. And then especially, too, when it's lined up, people had footage of the actual election machines doing the Obama-Romney like mishap.
Yeah.
And somebody lined them up, and it was just, I was crying laughing.
It happens verbatim. And so we'll keep going. But like I said, even at that point in time, you had instances of not necessarily voting machines, but like just touchscreen machines making ill selections. So again, it's not a far cry that this was actually going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And even looking back at it, as your resident election worker, member of this podcast, a lot of states, a lot of counties did not go with those voting machines specifically for that reason, and it's it is quite silly to rely on those types of voting machines unless it's for some sort of handicapped voter.
There has to be some county official out there who was watching the episode of The Simpsons where the Obama-McCain mishap happened, and he was like, all right, next election, I don't know, Simpsons have been right on a couple of things. If this is one of them, we're budgeting for paper.
Yeah, definitely.
And I didn't really include this one in the script, but I'll mention it anyway because you brought up instances of electronic touchscreens not working. In a pretty early episode of The Simpsons somewhere in the 90s, they had an episode where kids were writing down were using a PDA type.
Yeah, like what would almost be like a smartphone of sorts.
Exactly, and they were writing down, and one of the characters said, "Beat up Martha," or something like that.
Martin. Yeah.
Yeah, beat up Martin, and then it switched to eat up Martin.
Yeah.
And so people were like, "Oh, they predicted typos."
Yeah, I saw that. Or they predicted autocorrect.
Yeah.
I guess I might as well just go into it now. The video talks about, or what I saw talks about how back then there was some semblance of a PDA
by Apple
called the Apple Newton. And,
oh, wow.
And it had a very poor touchscreen. Yeah.
Yeah, and so when they were, is this from what was it, like Channel Frederator?
Yeah, the Frederator
Yeah,
video.
so go check out that video. It's really interesting. We'll link down to it in the show notes. But he the guy on Channel Frederator, his name escapes me, talks about how that actually became an inside joke in Apple, and when they were designing the iPhone, that kind of became an inside joke to them and served as motivation for them to really get the keyboard functionality of the original iPhone down.
Okay.
Simpsons is affecting more than just the comedy and TV landscape. I mean, imagine how. I mean, I think that iMessage is pretty bad, or autocorrect is not great as it is. Maybe my typing just sucks.
It's getting better.
But
yeah, 100%.
But imagine how much worse it would be without The Simpsons.
No, and
Thank God for Matt Groening.
but that's you see early on though what you see today, and prime example is what just happened with this Sonic movie. You as a company, if you're creating a product, especially if you're not 100% about how it's going to produce in whatever market you're producing it for, if you're producing a product, you want to make sure that you're listening to every little criticism, because they could make a big difference. And right off the bat, everybody, and it was like, I could only imagine the loud noise that was being made in those offices for Sonic, where it was just like, those eyes look terrible. Those are
The
not
teeth.
You know what I mean? It was just
yeah.
did not, nothing about it looked right. So
Meow.
so a company like Apple, it's in their best interest to listen to, like, you know, the pulse of pop culture.
Also, shout out to the new Sonic movie VFX artists. Great job.
They did
with
great.
Great job with the rehash, or the redo of it.
R.I.P. to the old FX artists. They're probably dead in a ditch right now
That will not show up on their resume at any point in their lives.
because they don't have a resume
You've
anymore.
been cut from Team Sonic.
You didn't go faced enough.
Vroom.
No, they did. No, those VFX artists, they got to go faced. Moving on to the next prediction. We all remember the Higgs boson particle, right?
Of course.
Oh yeah, for
yeah,
sure.
I think about it every day, morning, day, and night, and before I go to a little sleepy time.
I have a picture of the Higgs boson particle next to my bed.
Can you tell the listeners about the Higgs boson particle?
I can, John.
Because there's a good chance they might not know it.
Yeah. So the particle is essentially proved how everything in the universe has mass, and it's called the God particle because of how important it is to all life in the universe. And it's so important to me that when I searched up Higgs boson particle, I lost No Nut November.
Oh my fucking god!
You just couldn't help yourself.
As I typed in
You made it so far.
Higgs boson, and then I just busted. Well, in 1998, Homer Simpson, in an episode called The Wizard of Evergreen Terrace, decided to become a scientist. And in the episode, he is standing in front of a chalkboard with a math equation written out. In the book, The Simpsons and Their Mathematical Secrets, by Dr. Simon Singh, he said that if you work out the equation, Homer has actually written on the board the mass of the Higgs boson particle, but only a little bit slightly larger than its actual mass. So in 1998, they fucking damn near proved the existence of the Higgs boson particle.
And this is the one in the Frederator video that they completely were just like, yeah, they guessed it, and moved right on from it. And that's where I was like, wait a minute, that's the one that if you go into the subreddits, people are like, that's the one
100%.
That proves it.
That kind of freaked people out a little bit. It makes it much more real than any of the other examples.
Yeah, 100%. Especially because like the amount of shit that you need, that they needed, like the particle accelerator and fucking all that weird shit in order to prove it.
For them to be on, for the excuse to just be that they were on their mark and that they were such good writers and animators, that it doesn't even come remotely close to why that, could be an explanation as to how they could, even at the very least, accidentally write
and Tim,
the equation
how
for
many
the Higgs
years
boson particle.
How many years before did they actually this episode happen until?
So this episode aired in 1998, and the Higgs boson particle.
It came later on. So it's the kind
it
of
was
thing.
only a couple years ago. I'm to double check into the.
Drum roll, please.
Let me Google when it was discovered.
I'm looking up
That's
as
my
well.
drum roll.
On July 4th, 2012.
Significant-
shut
and
up.
And you're not just talking about some general ass fucking theory that is just floating out there in the ether. We're talking about a very specific thing that I'm sure a lot of scientists worked very fucking hard on to get to, and therefore kept this work very secret, because if you go back to any other sort of major scientific breakthroughs, scientists hate sharing with other scientists until they know they can have fucking patent the idea. So it's crazy to think that this idea just made its way out and was put on a TV show and nobody gave a fuck.
Yeah, but I mean, if you're talking to like true scientists, though, I feel like the fact of just discovering it, like you get credits on it. You know what I mean? Like I don't know, but I just find it even like
there's the people who discovered the
there.
DNA spiral aren't the ones who were actually credited with it. I think DNA, something like that. There are examples in history of scientific thievery. I'm sure there are. Even just going to the Bone Wars, you know what I mean, with the dinosaur bones, stuff like that. So,
where people created their own dinosaur bones and stuff.
But they sabotaged other people's excavation sites.
I just love imagining the scientists who worked on the Higgs boson particle. Like on July 5th, they took the day off because they just discovered the Higgs boson particle, so they earned it. And they're like, oh, maybe I'm gonna watch The Simpsons today. I'm gonna watch a fun new episode, and they choose a random episode, The Wizard of Evergreen Terrace. It sounds fun, sounds exciting. We'll watch it, and then it comes to the scene. It's like, wait a minute. Oh, come on!
That's a little bigger, but shit.
when you take off your pants and your girl sees your ding dong, that's a little bigger, but shit.
Your Higgs boson is a smidge larger than what was theorized.
The eternal disappointment when she finds out that it's not a Higgs boson particle, or it is. It's just multiple of them, right?
What?
Yeah, cut that.
Multiple.
Cut what?
I tried to make a wiener Higgs boson particle joke, and I just realized that technically Higgs boson particles, like, they're everywhere. You know what I mean? Like, you're made of them, right?
I think I don't know enough about Higgs boson to talk about it.
We're gonna.
It's a particle, dude. It's everywhere. What do you mean you don't know what?
In 2007. In 2007, the Simpsons movie was released, and they made a prediction that, looking back, it doesn't seem too far-fetched now, but all things considered, for 2007, is pretty spooky.
Very spooky.
Very spooky.
It's spooky season, lads. And in the Simpsons movie, the plot of the movie is that essentially Homer Simpson dumps nuclear waste into the water supply, and the EPA puts a biodome around Springfield. And at one point in the movie, spoiler alert for the Simpsons movie, they escape the biodome and are on the run from the EPA. And that's when the EPA gets a little help from the NSA, who tracks the Simpsons down by listening in on their conversations. And this is concerning for some people because the first whistle to be blown about the government listening in on our calls was done by Edward Snowden in 2013.
Wow. Wait, so we didn't know the government was listening to our calls? Well,
I'm sure there were some tin hat guys who were like, tinfoil hat guys who were like, they're listening in on our Motorola Razors.
Does the Simpsons explicitly say that it was the NSA that was tracking them?
I believe so.
So that might be a little bit crazier because, I mean, it's not far-fetched for the government to listen in on phone calls. The FBI does it all the fucking time.
I was just going to say, the FBI for so long has been doing wiretaps.
But we didn't know the NSA was spying on its own people, listening to its own people until Edward Snowden blew the...
Yep. No, you're right.
And this was made 6 years, or it was released 6 years before the Snowden documents leaked, and since it's an animation movie, they probably wrote that joke in like 2005, 2006.
That's a good point.
Mm-hmm.
Now, all these are pretty crazy, and there's probably a logical explanation for all these quote-unquote predictions, and there are so many more. There's probably about 30 of them. Time Magazine has a huge list we'll link to, and it's so much. And we really don't have time for all that, but if you want my opinion on the whole matter, the theory can be essentially put to rest by a quote from a writer for The Simpsons named Dan Greeney. In an interview with The Hollywood Reporter, he said, and this is concerning the Donald Trump episode, or the Lisa Simpson Donald Trump prediction. That just seemed like the logical last step before hitting bottom. It was pitched because it was consistent with the vision of America going insane.
Why are we asking him to explain the Trump one? Explain the Higgs boson.
Yeah.
That is the one that I think merits the most scrutinization.
No, because just like Dead Bart, if you ask the question about Higgs boson, he ends the interview early and walks out.
He disintegrates into millions of more Higgs boson particles.
Matt Groening is just Higgs boson.
I love that name. It's a Higgs boson.
It rolls off the tongue.
It sounds like a character that would be in like a Coen Brothers movie. Yeah, this is my brother, Higgs boson.
Higgs boson.
Uh-oh.
But so.
Oh, I don't want a Higgs boson into outer space.
Oh my god.
Clap it up for me, everybody.
You're good. You're great.
Woohoo.
So, to bring it back to the topic, because that was a fetch.
Wait, we had one the entire time?
Yeah, apparently. But
I had the whole script written out.
with what Dan Greeny is saying, and it pretty much is in line with what the Frederator video says, that you can find these little pockets of, fortune telling in past history where you're just like, no, it was going to happen. Like in 2000, Trump did run for president, kind of, but like on a very unknown third party, like not even independent.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But it was not any sort of meteoric force that it was that now. But
yes, okay.
But to that same point, he didn't have Twitter in 2000.
True.
But so that's where a lot of people were saying, okay, that's why them predicting Trump being president wasn't as much of a far cry as some of the other things. Higgs boson fucks me up, but
that on the other hand,
It made me nut.
But the other examples, you could find some sort of little tidbit from them. You just have to do a little bit more research. But just like the Dead Bart article, they all benefit from talking about things that came pre-internet. So the pre-internet, the pre-internet age, it's gonna become its own sort of mystery in and of itself, because you have a lot of people sitting here saying, I don't trust history books, I don't trust news, and you have every reason to sit there and say that, but you're living in a much more exposed world today because the internet does not allow for inconsistencies. Nearly as much.
Exactly. Yep, I was just going to say, the internet definitely has its inconsistencies, but you're able to fact check and corroborate certain stories on a much larger scale.
But you could go back to 2013, or you can go back to things from that time that might be a little bit easier to corroborate. It's a lot harder to corroborate something some schmuck did in 1994 to get an episode that was made in 1989. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where there wasn't people also blogging about this event, being like, it was actually strange that that guy just walked off the stage after one question. You know what I mean? So unless there are, and Google's doing a great job at covering it up.
Next conspiracy, Google covers up. We're just going to tie it in, right? So now Google is covering up the Simpsons conspiracy. We need to pop the lid off that bad boy.
They just cover up what you don't want to see.
is Google.
Google is Higgs boson particle.
Excuse me, Alex Jones.
I just nutted, sorry.
I need you to make a woke Google, please, so we can see the truth information. Thank you.
Thank you. So that just about does it for the Simpsons theory.
I think there's a lot of. I think out of the ones that we've done, there's some credence to it. I think that the story is really cool and is a good segue into the much broader theory of the time traveling. But especially, you said, apparently there's a lot more instances of this.
There's about 30.
So depending on how telling those are, I think this could definitely be a possibility.
And that's where you see the Freemason theory start to pick up some steam, because in terms of time travel, we can't prove that exists yet, but what you can kind of see other theories that postulate the same thing. It's the idea that if you're part of some sort of secret society, you have the ability to have the inside track on events as they're either happening or as they may happen. So certain things, like maybe getting Trump into the White House, that's not something that that the Freemasons could come up with in a month and then put into action the next month. That takes arguably a decade's worth of planning.
The long game on
the long game. And so if Groening was a Freemason, he would have the inside knowledge of the long game, so he could then make episodes about it and make money.
And that wraps up this episode of the Rabbit Hole Podcast. My name, as always, is Tim, and you can find me on social media at Timmy Brenner. John, where can they find you?
At JohnnyBeGood911. I finally looked up my Twitter handle.
And Matt, where can they find you at?
Matthew Brenner with no vowels, and I have still not tweeted once
Nice.
since we've started the show. So
the brand is strong. The brand is strong. You can find us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, which you already have if you're listening to this. Please make sure to leave a review, rate the show 5 stars, subscribe. It helps the show out a lot. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.
Come back again real soon.
thank you.